competition that everyone's looking forward to is at left tackle between Garett Bolles and Elijah Wilkinson. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this episode of our Countdown to Camp series. I'm Phil Milani alongside Sidney Jones and Eric Dalala. Guys, we heard John Elway at the end of the draft say the best player will play at left tackle and admitted that we have to get better at that position. So the question is, who will start at left tackle? Sidney, let's start with you.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one of the biggest question marks heading into the season in training camp. For me, I think it's going to be Garett Bolles. And as you all know, Broncos country is not happy with him, given his history of holding penalties, 26 to be exact, in 34 career games. However, I still think it's going to be Bolles who will win this starting left tackle spot on week 1 against the Titans, simply because Wilkinson has been on the team just as long as Bolles and has never been a starter. Yes, he did fill in for Juwan James last season when he was injured, and I think it will be a close competition, but Wilkinson is the guy who can help with depth. And I think it was back in May, Pro Football Focus named Garett Bolles the Broncos' most underrated player, which was surprising to me to see, but I think the potential is there, and if he can limit those penalties this season, he's going to be a solid starter.
Yeah, he played much better with Drew Lock playing back there behind him. Obviously, a mobile quarterback helps the offensive line. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, Phil, you hit the nail on the head there. Drew was only sacked 5 times in 5 games. You can handle 1 sack a game if you're the Broncos. And, Garett gets a bad rep because of the holding penalties, but you can survive 1 holding call a game. I mean, he needs to get rid of some of these other penalties, the unnecessary roughness there at the end of the the Raiders game that almost lost the game for the Broncos. But you can deal with 1 holding penalty. What you can't deal with is letting Drew get hit over and over. And unfortunately, Elijah Wilkinson gave up more than twice as many sacks as Garett Bolles in 2019. And so I personally would take a holding call over letting the, presumed hopeful franchise quarterback get hit. I do think Garett, you have to consider too, he hasn't played all that much football still. He played at Snow College, played at Utah briefly, but he's still learning this game. And even though he's an older player, I think there's a chance you could get to the end of this year and say, hey, he's a guy that we want to keep around a little bit longer. And especially with Juwan James's health as still a question, you don't know if he's going to be able to stick around. Maybe Elijah Wilkinson remaining as that option at right tackle is best for Denver.
One option that maybe some people thought the Broncos would explore is bringing in a veteran, maybe making a trade for Trent Williams. They never did that. So does that tell you anything, Sidney?
I think it does. I think it says everything. And the fact that the Broncos didn't draft anyone to replace Bolles this year either, I think it shows that they're confident in him. And I think it even gives him more motivation now to make it happen.
Eric, it seems like Bolles might get sort of an unfair rap just because they took him ahead of Ramczyk, who's been an all-world type of player down there in New Orleans. That's an unfair comparison, wouldn't you say?
I don't know if it's unfair, but it's just, it's the nature of it. And what happened, that was kind of the Broncos' old drafting strategy where you drafted potential and you drafted athleticism over proven players. And, I personally wonder if that draft was being held today, would they go with Ramczyk, who was a more proven player coming out of college? But I think Garett Bolles still has an opportunity to do something here. And an interesting fact, if you think about around the country, you're not going to have these fans at home games. Maybe it's easier for Garett Bolles to reset after giving up a sack if he's not hearing all these boos after he, gets a holding penalty. And so maybe that can help him. I think you're going to see, a better, more improved Garett Bolles. And at the end of the year, I don't think you're going to think about him the same way.
I don't mean to be a Bolles apologist here. The only reason why I said maybe it was unfair was because Ramczyk has Drew Brees back there. He's getting rid of the ball so fast. And if you think about Bolles, he's gone through several offensive line coaches, different offensive coordinators, different quarterback every year. Maybe having some consistency will be beneficial at that left tackle position. It's going to be a competition, though, and the best player will play, just like John Elway said. All right, one more day to go, and we'll cover the biggest question heading into training camp. Will the Broncos make the playoffs in 2020? Until then, for Sidney Jones and Eric Dalala, I'm Phil Moore.